of our technical issues straightened out up here. Welcome to the Mobile Programming Throwdown Rematch. We did this actually last year at the Irvine conference, and everybody loved it, so now we have a lot of pressure to do. The idea of this, actually, I sort of came up with the idea a year ago. Based on the idea, I've seen a lot of sort of presentations, a lot of workshops and things in mobile programming, and I would go to it and they would have all this prepackaged stuff, and here's this thing, you link there, and I didn't feel like I got a sense of what it looked like to see the process. And as we all know as teachers, it's very different to look at somebody's code they already wrote and explain it to you versus seeing them actually develop it. So we had this format where we basically take the three platforms, Windows, Android, iOS, and have three experts come in and develop a small app from scratch. And you can sort of see the tools, see how they did things, and do that. We have three brave souls this year who are putting themselves out there. I think it's a wonderful thing that they do this because it's a scary thing to develop live.
For professional teaching.
But we're very sympathetic, right? And so all three will be developing, I'll let them sort of introduce themselves, but all three developing the same sort of small app. And what we decided on this year was a random contact caller. So what you can do is sort of have your app select a random contact from your contact list and give you the option of calling them. So if you're really lonely and you just want to call somebody, you can use this and pick somebody random. If you don't like, I don't want to call them, you can pick somebody else to do it. But really to sort of show a little insight into using some of the mobile part of it on things. The format we have, if we go to the next slide, each one will have, in round one I call it, just a few minutes, 2, 3, maybe 4 minutes to introduce themselves, a little bit about their platform, maybe what their background is. And then in round 2, they will go in succession, of actually creating the app. So we'll talk through sort of what tool they're going to be using, the process. If you want a yellow question out, you can do that. And then, depending on how much time they have at the end, they have the option of showing you the version of the cake that's already in the oven that they can pull out and show to you. So they have the option of showing the bells and whistles version if they want to. But the goal is to develop something from scratch so that you see the whole process and using the tools on things. So that sound good? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to start out with it, and we're going to serpentine it. So who's Alfred first?
Yeah.
No, Ralph first. So Ralph Morelli is going to be doing the Android platform.
Microphone, please. Pass the mic.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ralph Morelli. I'm a professor at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. I've been using App Inventor for Android for the last 3 years. Chinma Uche and I, whom many of you may know, piloted a version of the CS Principles course in App Inventor. And currently, we are teaching 10 Hartford teachers. We're putting them through a 6-week GASP professional development course, after which they're going to be teaching their students the CS principles using App Inventor for Android. So App Inventor, how many of you have tried App Inventor? Wow, okay. Well, you're going to be seeing the new version in action today. And I have to say that the organizers of this have come up with an app that doesn't actually work in App Inventor. I'll explain in a moment. Oh, do I have slides?
You do have the slides, yeah. Just let me know.
I made them up. Okay.
Yeah, just let me know when we're done.
Now, this is a sort of snapshot of the usage of App Inventor as of last week. So you see there's almost 1 million users. 27 to 43,000 weekly active users, depending on the time of year. So it's up in the 40s during the school year. In the summer, it's dropped down a bit. And you can see that it's an international user base. And well, here's the current market share that I could find as of time score last week. You can see Android has crept up to a good chunk in the market. So even though App Inventor only works on Android, there are a lot of people with Android devices out there.
Okay, I'm Alfred Thompson. I'm currently teaching high school computer science at Bishop Girton High School in Nashua. Last year, when I did this, I was working for a company called Microsoft, and they were paying me all kinds of money to show this stuff. This year, I'm doing it for free. I'm not sure what that says. You can go on the next slide. A few references I want to make. Dreamspark.com, free software, so you can get all the development software for Windows Phone for free. The other nice thing is, if for students who are a member of DreamSpark, they get free access to the Windows Phone marketplace. So they can create Windows phones, and theoretically, you have to be 18, but parents, create accounts and whatnot. But Dreamspark.com is free software from Microsoft. Dev.windowsphone.com has links to a lot of resources. The last link here, blog.acthompson.net, that's my blog. In fact, if you go there now, you don't have to stay, you can leave, because I got the video of my presentation, it's already there. So you don't have to pay attention to the men behind the curtain. As may, there are a lot of resources for Windows Phone, a lot of free access to developer marketplace, and I do know of a number of students who have learned how to do this and then go on and gotten summer jobs developing Windows Phone apps. Others have created great games and are making money through advertising and whatever, and that's true for all the platforms. All right.
Well, thanks for that. I'm the non-teacher in the room, apparently, so I aspire to teach as many people as I can find about iPhone development. I'm the creator of Walk, Jog, Run. 2002, I was having trouble finding running routes in my neighborhood. I was doing laps of a quarter-mile parking lot, trying to figure out how I could train for a 10K, and realized that with my computer science degree, master's in software engineering, and good old Boy Scout math of figuring out how long a piece of string is on a map, that I might be able to build something. So I built a tool for the web, and then in 2009 we built an iPhone app based on the site. So Walk, Jog, Run has grown to 1.8 million crowdsourced routes around the world. It's gone from living in a cupboard a closet in my bedroom where the cleaner used to unplug it and have to rush back and turn the server back on, to something that costs a lot of money at Amazon to host it every day. We've got training diaries, we've got training plans. If you walk or jog or run, we support you, and also cyclists too, but you can't keep expanding the domain name beyond a certain legible level. We've got training tips on the blog and a great community. So if you do anything, if you're looking to get healthy, we've got a lot of great content for you, recipes, training tips, that kind of stuff. I built the iPhone app in 2009 after seeing an Apple Tech Talk. I went out and bought an Apple, it's called a mini device that sat on my desktop, and I remoted into it from my Windows machine because I didn't even have a Mac to develop on at the time. And from there, it's grown to the point where I'm actually hosting a developer meetup. I moved from Chicago to Boston last year and created a meetup called NS Coder Boston. So if anybody is local, interested in iPhone development, it's kind of like bring your pet rock project. So it might not be what you're doing commercially during the day, but you can turn up if you want to build an iPhone app. You can work through tutorials, and there's a great community of developers who come each night. It's once a month on the third Tuesday of every month, and that's an opportunity to work on your project and get feedback on your code, get advice, and learn how to do things that you don't know how to do. If you're looking for a book to get started with iPhone development, this book, Beginning iOS 6 Development, book is phenomenal. It's by A-Press. I've just ordered a copy for Mark, who's working with me as an intern this summer, to work through that book. It's how I got started with iPhone development. And then the second thing is, for the purpose of this presentation, I've got a link to the address book development docs from Apple, so you can see how I access, beyond the presentation, you can actually see all the APIs and the documentation on how you connect to an address book, reach out, find people's phone numbers. So that's it. So I'm actually the first to tee off the next segment of this. So I'm going to be that's why it's my laptop and my daughter on the background picture there. So. All right, so let me just mount this so I can try to talk and type at the same time. Not something I'm very practiced in like you guys, so excuse any long period of silence. Can you hear me okay now? Good. Okay. So the basic app that we were trying to build is, it's a contact thing. So what I decided to do is to have it, you open the app, there's going to be a button that will say, pick a winner out of my address book. And then it's going to show a detail card with a tappable phone number for the purpose of being able to call that person right now. And then at the end, I'll show you and here's one I made earlier product, so you can see what it's supposed to look like. So to get started, we're going to use Xcode. I'm going to open a new window and drag this over to somewhere over here, if I can get it to fit. Let's see. This is going to be tricky with that resolution. What's that? Yeah, there you go. Let me just mirror this. That might make it easier for me to see what's going on that screen. Okay, so I'm not being able to see a great deal of this. Yes, I'm just going to change the screen resolution. Okay, at least I'm going to be able to see what's going on.
Beyond my pay grade.
Well, that starts. I'm going to get started with this so I don't run out of all my time figuring out how to get this thing going, but hopefully you can see some of this. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm in Xcode. Xcode is the tools that you'll get from Apple. These are all the default tools. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick a utility application. It tells you what that is. It's essentially, it's going to have a main view, and then it has a detail view that we're going to go through to. Hit next. We're going to give it a name. So in this case, I'm going to call this RD for rapid dialer. I'm going to call it number 2. All the rest of these things will be defaulted. I'm going to choose to use storyboards. This is what we use to do our layouts. And I'm going to use ARC, automatic reference counting. Before automatic reference counting, you had to do a lot of the garbage collection. You had to do memory management yourself because there is no garbage collection. ARC takes away some of that burden. Next. It's going to ask me where I want to put this. And the dialog at the bottom that you can't quite see is that I'm choosing to create a local Git repository as well, and then hit return. So this is now a new project. So it's created the things for me. I'm going to change the deployment target to 6.0 so I can actually demonstrate this on my phone for you later once we get going. And then let's see if I can make some more of this. Not quite sure why this is running off the screen. There we go. So I actually have a working product right now. So if I choose iPhone 6.1 simulator and hit run, it's going to bring up the iPhone simulator, which is going to look huge on the screen. Let's make it a little bit smaller. So this is the app. It doesn't look particularly functional right now, but this is the first page. I hit the info button, it flips around to a back card. So these are the two views, the first page and the second page. So that's our first piece. So what are we going to do something useful? So the first thing I need to do is to show, I just want to give you a quick overview. So there's an app delegate. This is the main controller. All the Apple, the iPhone development is built around the model view controller approach. So the controller here, the main controller is the app delegate, where you put a lot of your model related data. And then we've got the main storyboard is for the visual elements, which is going to be a bit of a struggle with only a tiny little screen here, but I'll do my best to display as much of this as I possibly can. Okay, this is theoretically what it's supposed to look like. And then we've got the view controllers. These actually control the views. So the actual layout is in a view, and then you have a view controller that's responsible for presenting those views and communicating data from the model and putting it into those things. So right now we have a very simple app that's working somewhat. What we want to work in the interface elements to start with though. So the first thing we've got this I button down the bottom. And if I can drag this over a little bit, we might be able to see it. So right now it tells me it's an info light. I'm going to change it to a rounded rect, which is a rounded rectangular button. And I'm going to give it the title, what's going to write? Go ahead, make my day. And then, obviously that text doesn't fit. So I want to move it into the middle of the screen. So you'll see the little blue, I don't know if you can see with the lighting, but there's blue guides that tell me that I've got it oriented to the dead center of the screen there. And it automatically creates constraints that say this is going to be the same, regardless of the screen orientation and screen size, it's always going to be this far from the left, this far from the right, this far from the top and the bottom. So it's Apple's way of doing view management. So when I try to make this button bigger, you'll see it stays centered in the middle of the screen. It's a little trickier with the small screen real estate, but you get the idea. And then I can make the button a little taller. So now we've got a button that we wanted on there. And so that's my button. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a label, which is where we're going to put the, I want to write out to show you how many contacts we have in the address book that we're working with. So this label is going to say initially 0 contacts, loaded, and I'm going to make the color white, and then build and run. So we should see in the simulator again. So here we go, we've got that label, the text didn't stick. That is because I didn't tab out the field. Let's run that again. Those demo gods, I didn't pray. 0 contacts loaded, go ahead, make my day. So instead of the info button, it still takes us to that second screen. Good. So the next part is a lot of code. So we've done the first visual piece here, but obviously 0 contacts isn't what we're looking for. We're looking for the actual number of contacts. So to get that, we're going to have to dive into some code. So I'm going to go over to this navigator panel, and I'm going to pick the app delegate. As I said, the app delegate's responsible for managing state and presenting views. This code is automatically generated when I made the project. And what I'm going to do is I have a little snippet that I can drag into here with the code. I'm not that fast a typer, and I figured it would be much more pleasant for everybody to see the code going in, so I can talk about the code than just sit watching me painfully type. So I'm going to look for the app delegate snippet. You can create your own custom snippets. It's really handy if you have a piece of code that you do over and over again. You can just drag things in. I've actually pulled this into the wrong place, though, so let me switch over to the app delegate. So this is the header file. So I'm going to drag the snippet in here, and I'm going to walk through it. So what I'm doing is the app works with the address book. So to work with the address book, the first thing you have to do is to take a copy of the address book. You can't work on the native address book because you have to save changes to it. So you take a copy of the address book, and then we're going to have 2 methods, one called Authenticate address book. If you want to use it on the iPhone, you know, Apple is quite strict about security. They want you to give permission to an app to let it access your address book so you don't steal contacts and that kind of thing. So you have to ask for the user's approval. And then the second thing I'm going to do is have a method called load address book that is going to use the address book we've been approved for and say load it. Now the first thing you'll notice, I dragged this code in here, is this little red icon. Xcode tells you that it was expecting a type. And it tells you, the little arrow tells you that it's right here under AB address book ref. So what that tells me is that I'm actually missing the class that we need. And that's because we've not imported the address book framework. Even though we know we want to work with the address book, in reality, I've not actually told Xcode that I wanted to use address book. So to do that, we go back into the project details and scroll down, and there's a list of linked frameworks and libraries. Hit the plus and double click on the address book framework, and now I've added the address book framework. So if we go back to the code, we've still got the error. And the reason for that is just because you've added it to your project doesn't mean it's been imported into this code. Because it is compiled, you have to tell it every piece of code you want. So as I start typing the import statement at the top, I'm going to include the angle brackets is for the precompiled object. So in this case, the header I'm pulling in is going to be the address book header file. So now you'll notice the little I has gone from so I've lost the error message there, so I know that this page is good. So we've imported that. The next thing is we're going to switch to the implementation file for this, and I'm going to drag in my second snippet. So again, saving some time here, hopefully. There's a lot of code just came in here, so I'll try and make it as big as possible so you can see what's going on. These are the two methods we talked about. Authenticate address book. We get a reference. The first line says get a reference to the current address book. The next line checks to see if a user's already approved that. You've got three scenarios. Either the user hasn't used this app before, in which case you want to request access. The second case is that it's been authorized. And the third is that the user's denied access. I'm not going to talk about the denied access and throw the alerts up there in the interest of time. But if it's the first time you open the app, you have something called a completion handler where we call load address book and we pass in the approved address book. And down into the second method, load address book, that simply takes the address book that you've got, makes the copy, and stores it into the variable for this class. And then the last thing we need to do is at the top of this file, this application did finish launching with options is the first method that gets called every time your app launches. It's the very first piece of code. And in here, we're just going to add self-authenticate address book to get things started. And that's it. So again, if I build and run, as long as the demo gods are in my favor, it still works. But we haven't seen anything change up here. That's because we haven't told, oh goodness, we are well behind. I'm well behind on time. Because we haven't told it where to load any of the contacts, this still goes to the same place. So I'm going to go back into my app and go through the next piece. So I'm going to go to the storyboard. I'm going to show you how to connect up some elements, and I'm going to work through some of the rest of them. So there's actually two views to this. This is the second view. So the first thing we need to do is to change this to say winner. Oh, not winter. And then I need to add some elements that are some labels. So I'm going to get rid of the side of this. So I'm going to drag a label and make it the width of this. And in the interest of time, it's going to be not quite as pretty. Winner. I'm going to make another label beneath it, aligned to match up. Drag it out. I'm going to put my name in here because I hope that I'm going to win this competition, but ultimately this is just placeholder text. I could just leave it as it is, but I just wanted to show you that we have something in there. And then a third label, which is going to be for displaying the phone number, in which case, just like Hollywood, 555-555-5555. And then the last thing we want is a button. I'm going to drag a button on here and change the label to call. And that's our user interface completed. So the next thing I need to do is to show you, I'm going to hide that organizer, and I'm going to, this is the, what's this called? I forget what the name of this editor is. It's the assistant editor. So for this particular piece of page, which is the flip side view controller, which is displayed on the left-hand side, it shows me the actual view controller, the code behind over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire these pieces up. So I'm going to open up the header file, and I'm going to create a connection between the name of the person who won and call it label. Explain the winner. Did I skip a page? May have done. Let me finish this piece. I'm going to have to backtrack just a touch. This is label winner. I'm going to connect this guy up and say label phone. This one is a button. I'm going to call it button call. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a similar kind of thing, but I'm going to create an action instead of an outlet. And this action, the purpose of this action is to call the method called contact that we're going to create in a minute. So I've created a flip side view controller, but I realized the piece of the code that I didn't work on was the previous slide that I'm going to whiz through. is the pick winner page. 2 minutes, so yes, I definitely need to whiz through this. So the main view controller, I got all that done. Pick winner, load address book, got through there, view did load. There's the piece that I missed. So I'm going to drag in some code into the main view controller. Good. Sorry for the hustle there, folks. This hopefully will make some sense. I am going to provide all the code in case any of you are thinking, I don't know what he's doing up on stage. This is the main view controller. I'm going to drag in some code. This is the code that calls load contacts and the code that calls pick winner that allows us to pick a winner. You'll notice there are some pieces missing. That's because I need to wire up this part of the interface, which wasn't done yet. So let's go ahead and do that. This is my contacts loaded. Label. Label contact count, and the other one I'm going to call out is the go ahead and my day button, which is button pick random. So I wired that up. So if I switch back to the code, I should have a much more pleasant experience over here now. Build failed. Where's the build? Problems. Address book copied. Delegate. I don't have a delegate over here. Yeah, let me just type that out and at least leave that in a semi-working state. Build. Okay, we're not getting there. So let me go to the one I built earlier. This is the random dialer product. Oops, don't have a device connected. Run. Are you? So this is my random dialer. This is the ultimate thing that I wanted to build for you. So you can see we were getting there at least. I hopefully showed you how you wire some pieces up. But you click go ahead, make my day. I've got 8 contacts, and we've picked John Appleseed as the winner. And then I thought a nice flourish would be to reverse geocode the address that's in his address book contact, find the pin in Atlanta, and draw that. And if we hit text, it will launch the SMS messaging component. So you can send an SMS message. Or we can hit call, and it will start dialing John Appleseed. We can come back and go back in again. And now David Taylor, somebody in San Francisco, again with a 555 number, somebody near Mountain View. And that is the other product. So, and that's somewhere in Florida. So that was my segment. Who's next? It's like being on a racehorse. I told you it took me 4 hours to build the app. Did you actually figure out how to present that? You might understand why it took me.
Okay, all right, so you've seen many of you have seen App Inventor. I'm going to just get started here, and I'm going to try to think and talk and demonstrate at the same time, but you can yell out if I'm missing things and help me, those of you who've seen it. So I'm going to make a new project. I'm going to call it Keep in Touch. And what will happen here is that a blank project will open up. This is the mock-up of the phone. And I'm actually going to be showing you the phone. I've got an actual phone hooked up there so you can see what's going on the phone. Not much is going to happen for a while. But I'm going to drag a label in here. And I'm going to, well, first I'm going to set up my screen. I don't want my screen changing orientation. So I'm going to set it to portrait. I'm not going to let it scroll. I'm going to take my label and I'm going to make it fill its parent container. So it goes all the way across. I'm going to change the font size to make it a little bigger. 24. And I'll center it. So then I'm going to put in a couple of buttons. My app, unfortunately, isn't going to look anywhere near as nice as Adam's. I'll put a horizontal container, also have it fill its parent. I'm going to drag a couple of buttons. Whoops. I'm going to drag a button there and another button here. I'm going to name this first button button contact. So this is what will look up the contact list. And this button is going to be named button call. Okay, so did I spell it right? Yep. And I'm going to also set those up so they fill up their parent container. And this one I'll label get contact or get a contact. And this one I'll label just with call. Let's see, and I want that also to fill its parent. So this is my beautiful visible interface so far. I'm going to drag in one more label, and I'm going to let this label be the result where the contact's name is shown. So I'm just going to call it, I'm going to make it also wide. And let's call it label, I'll just call it result. This will be the result of picking a random phone call. Actually, let me label it this way. This is how it's going to look. It's going to have the name and the phone of a contact, okay? Now, when I was introducing myself, I mentioned that we've managed to come up with an app that you can't build an app inventor. You can't say, give me a random contact off my contact list. I think the developers thought, why would anyone want to do that? That would be like Spam-A-Lot or something. So I actually have to do some Java coding to show you how to get this to work. But I want to just show you how easy it is to make a phone call if you know who you want to call. So I'm going to go into the social drawer, and I'm going to pick up the phone call component, and that's going to be a non-visible component. So you saw it drop to the bottom. Then I'm going to pick the phone number picker. And the phone number picker automatically populates with the phone numbers on your contact list. So that will be something we can do when we switch over to the block setter, which I'm going to do now. And what you should see is actually, if everything is hooked up, the interface over there on the left will hopefully change soon. No, please? I mean the phone. But okay, let me get started. We'll worry about that later. I'm going to make a global variable for the phone number, and I'm going to just initially put some text in it. Whoops. Oh, I don't want that. I want to put a piece of text there. Okay. So I'm just going to put the letter T there. And now, let me see. I've got two buttons. I've got my call button. I think we can take care of that one first. So when you make a call, when you click the call button, we want the global phone number that's stored here to be the phone number we call. So we're going to go to our phone number, our phone call component, and we are going to set its phone number to that global variable. Of course, before I do this, I should have put an actual phone number in there. So I'm going to do that by calling up my contact list. And then I'm going to make the phone call. So that is what you need to do to make a phone call. What I need to do next, then, is show you the phone number picker. And as you see here, the phone number picker has a bunch of events that it can respond to. One is called after picking. And that's the event that we want to respond to. What we want to do is we want to set the global variable to the number that the user picks off that list. And I'll hopefully be able to show you this in a moment. So I'm going to set the variable. I'm going to set that global variable by getting the phone number picker to give me the phone number that was picked by the user. And once I've done that, I'm all ready to sort of make my phone call. But just for the heck of it, let's also display in the phone number, in the label, as its value. Let's actually join together the phone number picker's name and phone number. So I'm going to copy and paste this here. So I want the name. There's the phone number. Where's the name? Oh, contact name, and I want the phone number. So is there anything else I need to do? What am I forgetting here? So let's see. You pick the phone number, it sets the global variable, and it displays it in the label. And then when you click the call, it makes the phone number. So I'm going to try to connect to my phone, and this is where things could go really bad if the wireless isn't working well. But I'm connecting wirelessly. Life is good so far. So let's see if it works. So I touch my text for phone number. Up comes a list of phone numbers to call. I pick my daughter's name. Her name appears there. I click the call button, and up comes the phone caller. My daughter never answers. That was a safe one. Okay, but that's not going to cut it according to the contest, because I suppose I could have spun it this way. It brings up the whole thing, so I'll fling the list with my thumb, and then I'll whack it with my finger, and whatever number, that's the one I'll call. But I do want to show you that even though so what you can see, however, is that App Inventor is a highly abstracted version of Android. So making a phone call is one little block, whereas that's many, many lines of code in Java if you program this in Android. And I've done Android programs, so I know that. But I do want to show you what that would be like. So let me just switch over here into Eclipse. So basically, you would have to write an Eclipse app, and I've got it all here. And then you would run that app on your Android phone. And in fact, you would load that package on your Android phone. And you would use a component that I'll show you in a moment called a activity starter. So you're basically going to start up from App Inventor an Android activity or an Android application. That's what we're going to do in a moment. I've got a better picture of this. Let me show you this picture of it here. So this is what the Java code looks like. There's a little more to it, but this is the key part. And the phone contacts are stored in a database called the Contacts DB. And this is the code to actually get that database right up here. And then not all your contacts have phone numbers, so you have to actually keep generating random numbers and then checking if they have a phone number. Keep doing that until you find one with a phone number. And then you have to look up the phone number in the actual phones database and then return it. And if you look, can you see down here where it says name, phone? So I'm going to pass back a string to App Inventor, name, phone. And then I'm going to have to parse that string when I get it back in App Inventor. Does that make sense? Okay, so back to App Inventor. And now I'm going to go back to the designer view, and I'm going to drag out this activity starter out of the other stuff drawer. It's also a non-visible component. And you see there are certain properties to set here. So I'm going to have to go back into my into this page, and I'm going to copy and paste the properties. So I need to know the class. That's the Java class name. And I need that, and that's my activity class. So I'm going to pop that in there. I also need to know the Java, the package name of that app. And I'm going to pop that in there as the package name, activity package. Then I also need the result name, which I think is just the word result. Let's just double check. Yep, okay. So I've set up my activity starter to start the Java code I wrote, and I already have that Java code on my phone. So now let's go back to the blocks editor, and let's code up this button to make the contact. So this button here, the contact button, when it is clicked, all I have to do is start the activity starter. So I'm going to call start activity starter. Now that's an asynchronous process, right? It's going off to another Android app and starting it up. And now I need a way for the app to know when it's finished. 4 minutes? So I'll go here, and after that activity is done, I'm going to do a few things with that result that I get back. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up another variable here. I'm going to call it the result list. And I'm going to set it to just nothing for now. And what I'm going to do is when I get the result back, remember I put that colon there, right? So I want to set the result list to, I want to get rid of that, I want to break it into two pieces. So I'm going to use a split function and put this up here. And I'm going to split it into two parts. The text I'm going to split is the result here. So I have to get my result. I have to split it in two parts at that colon. And the first part will be the name, and the second part will be the phone number. And now I need to set my global variable to that first part of that. So my global phone number is going to be set to, I need to get the second part of that list. So I need to select the list item at the result list to the second thing on the list. That's my phone number. And let me also just set the label while I'm at it. And I'll just set the label to the result. Okay? I'll also set the label to the result. So let's see. I'm going to start up the activity when I click on the contact, and when it's done, it's going to set my list. And then my list is going to take the second thing off the list to set my phone number, and it'll display the result. So I think we're good. Let's see if it works. I'll get a contact. You see it randomly, you see it flash for a moment there. It randomly went out and got a contact. And Tom Barron, he's my accountant. He would not appreciate a call. Oh, man. How about this neighbor whose name I don't know that lives in the back of our house? My cousin, a Yankee fan, she will not appreciate a call. My philosophy buddy, my brother-in-law, no. My doctor. I'll call my doctor.
Tell me to be shut out for the answer to a question.
I got his answering service. Wouldn't you know? Well, that's it. So I have the stuff up on a demo. I can give you the link to it if you're interested for details. Thank you. You need this, right?
Last year I tried to do too much. Hopefully this year I'll do enough as opposed to not enough. I'm going to do this in Visual Studio. I'm going to write this in C#. I could write it in Visual Basic and actually any number of other languages. I'm in Visual Studio Professional because that's what I happen to have. Picking a C# project, a Windows Phone project, just the phone app. Give it a name. Voila. Push OK, and it's going to create a project. Oh, I could do it as Windows Phone 8 or 7.1. The reason I'm doing it for 7.1 is because the emulator for 7.1 has sample data, and it makes my life a whole lot easier. But the same code I can show you demoing on my Windows 8 phone. So what we've got here is, this is what it's going to look like on the phone. This is where we're going to paint the user interface. It's also declared in XML. So if you're one of those nitty-gritty people, how many of you started with punch cards like I did? Right? You know, you can go mess with the HTML and do it that way if you think drag and drop is for sissies. I, on the other hand, think that drag and drop is for mature individuals who have no time to waste. So I'm going to create a couple of things over here. I'm going to drag a button. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to widen this a little bit. And I'm going to call this button find. I can change what's in here a couple of ways. I'm just going to call it find. I'm going to drag in a couple of text blocks. And I'm going to put one here. And I'm going to call this one text name. So we can put the name in there. I can do some things to the appearance if I want. I can change the opacity, the visibility, all that stuff. The text, I can change the text here and just put name so we know it's going to show up there. And of course, I can change things like the properties of the font. You know, I can make the font bigger, make it bold, all kinds of good stuff. I can also copy this and paste it. So I've got another one here now. It's got all the same attributes, but obviously I'm going to change the name here to text phone. And I'm going to change the text in here to the phone. Anyway, we got a simple user interface. I can run this, but let's do some code behind it. I'm going to select this find button. And over here, I've got another button that lets me pick which events I want it to respond to. So I'm going to click on there, and I'm going to click on on click, let it automatically create an event handler for click. Before I do that, I want to make sure I've got all the libraries that I need. I'm going to need Microsoft.phone.user.data, so I can get the user data, and because I want to do dial up, I'm going to add some of the phone tasks. All right, now all the libraries, and that'll make my life a little bit easier. So what I want to do here is I want to gather all the contacts from my phone. So I'm going to create a collection object called contacts, which always works better if you spell it right. I didn't make any of these spelling errors in practice. Let's call it cons equals new contacts. IntelliSense is kind of aware of what I'm trying to do. I need an event handler. I'm going to do this search asynchronously, so I want an event handler to handle search completed. And this is what I like. All right, do I want to insert that? Yes. Do I want to create the handler? Yes. That saved me a little bit of typing. I discovered that this morning. That was very cool. I've done this a whole bunch of times now. Now we're going to do the search. So I'm going to do cons.search asynchronous. I want everybody, so I could have some filters, but I don't. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to say my filter kind, .none. And I have to put some kind of text in here, but I'm not quite sure why. Who cares? If we were going to use that, it would be a whole different thing. Now, let's take and do something with our event handler. A couple of things we need to do. We need to find out how many contacts we have. So that information is going to be returned in the event handler E. So I'm going to declare count as an integer, and I'm going to set it to e.results.count. Nice. Now we need a random number generator, so I'm going to create a random variable, which I'm going to creatively call R. And then I want to have an index into our collection. I'm going to call try me. Whoops. I should say int try me. Yep, we're going to set that value in a minute. I think I've got everything. Now, as mentioned earlier, I may have contacts without phone numbers. Trying to call them is going to be fruitless, so I'm going to make sure that I have somebody with a phone number. So I'm going to stick a do loop in here, and I'm going to say try me equals r.next between 0 and count. Fixed, oops. Oh, yep, you're right. Thank you. Try me. There we go. All right, now I'm going to use that to get one of my contacts. So, oh, you know what? I forgot to create a contact type. Contact C, all right. So in C, I will go back to E.results, and I'm going to get the element at try me. So far, so good. I've got a contact, and I'm going to keep doing this while C.phonenumbers.count is less than 1. There we go. All right. So this will keep going, keep trying random numbers, and then we'll just stick the name in text name.text. We will save c.displayname, and in text phone, .text, we'll display the phone number. Now, interesting thing is we could have multiple phone numbers. The smart thing to do would be to go through and pick one of the phone numbers, but I'm just going to pick the first one. Whoops, phone numbers.element at 0, and I'm going to turn that to string so that it'll display nicely in my text box. All right, what did I do wrong? There we go. All right, we're all set. So let's do this. What we'll do is, oh, you know, I did that in one of the practices. All right. So I'm going to go back here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, how about if we decide we want to do it, we double click on this phone. So again, I go to the events, double tap. If I double tap on the phone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a phone task. Phone call task, call it task. Equals new phone call task. I'm going to add the phone number to it. Phone number, and we can get that right from our text box. And now I can say text.show, and it will do our call. Now, if I did this right, it will show up in the emulator in a second here. Whoops, I got the wrong emulator going. Let's see if I can stop that. Yeah, it's not liking that because I got problems with that emulator. Let's switch. We can do a lot of things. We can switch to various emulators. Should be, no, don't continue. See, this tells you it's real, not Memorex. I can connect to a device. If I had the phone attached to my computer, I could run it right on the device, and I could run it on a number of emulators. I happen to already have this emulator started up, so we'll run it on there. And it will deploy to the emulator. And the nice thing about using the emulator is that it pretends to call. There we go. So, you know, I can click find, and it'll come back with somebody. And right now I see that I should probably have created that box bigger, but this is a demo anyway. When I want to double click on somebody, it gives me a second chance, and if I do call, in this case, it calls the emulator and pretends to make a phone call. Of course, I could also, you know, tell it not to. Come on, find somebody. Get the same person, don't call. And that went much better than it did in practice. I could also get other, you know, attributes, the name, address, pictures. I did a version earlier where I grabbed the picture and displayed the picture, and I'll be darned if I can find it. But it's really pretty easy to get at things once you've set it up. All right, how long did I take?
I think we've got like 2 minutes.
All right.
If there's anyone's question, I think all three of the presenters are happy to sort of answer specific questions. We're going to come up and talk to them afterwards also. Yeah.
I heard 4 hours from the fellow in the middle, sorry. How long did it take the other two?
Took me about a half hour to do the Java. The code was mostly found on, what is that? Stack Overflow.
Yeah, I guess it probably, I hadn't tried to do anything with the phone and the contacts lister all, so I spent about an hour or so doing research, and then, writing the code once I did that really was, I don't know, maybe half an hour or so.
And just to be clear, that 4-hour estimate included figuring out connecting to your Xcode again. I don't really have any interaction with that or history, so starting with that, figuring out how the app's going to work, trying to build the app. I built the bells and whistles version, and then basically started again and tried to work out how I'm going to try and teach that to you guys. So that's not being a teacher. It's just part of the process, and then iterating over to make sure I could get somewhat closer to 15 minutes, which I believe apparently.
Yeah.
It might take 17 minutes to build it in truth.
Yeah, I think most of us did a bunch of experimentation. We actually came up with a project that none of us had really done before. But I think, I'm sure it was the same for you. The documentation we found online was pretty adequate to figuring out how to do stuff we hadn't done before.
Just for fun, my student and I coded this in real time on Snap, which can make a mobile app, and we did it in the time it took us to do it now. But tiny URL BJC phone. And it tapped it.
So
It doesn't call a number because it's just a website doesn't call it, but it goes to a random thing, grabs a random contact, pulls it up, does the same thing, and it's a mobile app. You tap it.
Yeah. The interesting thing is I actually did the same app in Touch Develop in about 5 minutes. And the only reason I didn't show that is because there's a bug in the current beta that doesn't run on an actual phone. It runs great in the simulator, but not on my real phone, and I just didn't think that was fair.